What surprised you most about running a business solo?
I would say it's probably that part I didn't really think about is, doing absolutely everything. And, I never really thought of myself as a salesman, but I think it's easier to sell something when you wholeheartedly believe in the product.
How have platforms like Instagram and TikTok help you build interest, trust and momentum around Tiki Taka Tours?
Yeah, massively so. I mean, I wouldn't be anywhere where I am right now without it. It's sort of my sole method of reaching people at the moment. And TikTok's been great for, when I get a video where the hook is just right and the information is coming across in the right way and trying different formats, then it takes off really well. And I'm sort of engaging people with a call to action that makes them comment and it keeps pushing the video out. So TikTok's algorithm is great for that when you get a video that...
What would you say to them? Like, could you give like a bit of advice to someone that is trying to figure something out in the travel space? Hello, everybody, and a huge welcome back to the Travel Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Gemma Zinyama, the founder of Travel Insights AI, where we put the spotlight on people behind the modern travel businesses and explore how the industry is evolving. So today I am joined by Ben, who is the founder of Tiki Taka Tours, a really unique experiential travel business that brings football, travel and community together through organised tournaments across Europe. Ben, thanks so much for joining. It's great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
Thanks a lot. So to start us off, I'd love to go back a bit. Before Tiki Taka Tours existed, what did travel look like for you and where did football fit into that?
Yeah, so travel for me is very privileged enough for it to have been a constant throughout my life and something I've done a lot with family, whether that's summer holidays or ski trips or things like that. And yeah, went very frequently growing up to a lot of places throughout Europe, but more importantly for the formative years of my life post school, I went on a gap year, 4 months in Southeast Asia, Australia, New Zealand, which was probably the first time I really opened my eyes to other cultures, other aspects of the world, different ecosystems, and seeing that and living that experience was part of what made me want that to be more of my life and experience more of that in general. And football, I mean, there's always been a constant, it's something that I just grew up with and it was sort of just an extension of myself. I was playing every weekend, playing at school, playing with clubs. Even at the time I was a teenager, I'd be playing on the Saturday and the Sunday for school. Yeah, a borderline obsession really. And I was obviously a lot of kids grow up wanting to be a professional footballer, and I'm very much in the same boat. But unfortunately, it didn't work out for me, as it doesn't for, I think it's 99.8% of people anyways. Yeah, it just became the passion side of it for me and getting involved in it for that. But more importantly, friendship. And I made a lot of friends, most of my friends throughout my life really through the connection of sports, but primarily at university through football. And yeah, just a shared love of the game really. And I was lucky enough to have played growing up when I was playing for Surrey Elite in Bilbao in a tournament there. That was my first experience of tournament football. And then I would say what had the biggest impact was the Gothia Youth World Cup in Sweden at under 16s. And that was just a real festival of football. And that was probably one of the most amazing experiences I've ever been a part of. So yeah, living that and experiencing football in a different country with loads of other people who are there for exactly the same reason is definitely what sparks this, this love of the combination of the two. And then I got to a point in my life where I was looking for a different go down, and I had this idea of combining the two, and they're my two biggest passions. So I thought, what a life that I could live if I managed to combine the two and make it work, and also bring special experiences to other people that allow them to play abroad, which typically is, a very professional type thing to be doing and not many amateurs might get access to doing. So yeah, trying to give that opportunity to more people and just, combine those passions into one project really.
Brilliant. I love that you've actually managed to turn a passion into a business. So now we know how the idea for Tiki Taka Tours actually came about, which makes total sense, right? And I love the community aspect, which I'm sure we'll talk about as we go along. What gap did you feel wasn't being filled when you came across this idea?
So I think for me, if something like this in this form has existed, I would have been on the holiday myself, which is sort of why I thought that there was a space for it, really. It's not to say that, playing other tournaments abroad isn't something that's possible, because there are companies that do that, but it's more creating an experience in itself where, you're recording all the games. But I think the most important aspect of it, when you mention community, is bringing people together. So the format that you bring 4 teams on one tournament, they play the group stage on one day, the finals day on the second day. And as part of the holiday, the Wednesday, we have the welcome drinks. We bring everyone together. So before you've even kicked a ball, you've got to know the other guys you're playing against, which I think immediately makes it a more relaxed environment, and people know each other going into the football. And then the Friday, we have a presentation awards night where we're sort of celebrating the week and showing back the best clips, the funniest moments on and off the pitch, things like that. So
Yeah. What was the very first trip or tournament like for you?
it was pretty surreal, and probably won't be beaten, because I was actually playing as one of the teams,
Us
because we
you.
only had 24 players. So we did 4 teams, 6 aside. It's now 7 aside, but it's 6 aside on these pitches. And I was playing as one of the teams. So I got out there with the intention of organizing it. And then as soon as all my mates arrived, because it was a pilot, I managed to rope in a lot of my friends to come on, and then immediately sort of blended back into friendship mode, and they're offering to buy a couple of drinks. And I was like, okay, I'm going to pivot from being organizer now to living it as part of the experience and seeing what that would be like. And that was probably why it was the greatest experience I could possibly have, because I was with my mates living this idea that had come to life because they had put their faith in me to be able to make it happen. And yeah, just playing football abroad and watching back those clips and that experience of the awards night, and this punishment that we have for the dick of the tour for karaoke, which was it was just the whole aspect of it. I came back and I was just sort of on cloud nine, really. It was very surreal, and I just give it that opportunity to more people to experience.
I love that. And then maybe just thinking about like the guest's perspective, can you walk through like what a typical tour looks like? I know you mentioned that you have the welcome drinks, you play the tournaments. You also sort of spoke about the awards, but like the filming and the content, especially for people, that aren't really savvy in that area. There's a large amount of people that just want to rock up, be told what to do. But the fact that you capture these moments, you do the awards, and yeah, maybe just discuss a bit more about the social element and the bonding from the guest perspective. And I guess you must have got feedback as well off of the first one.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah. And for me, the tour doesn't start on the day that these guys arrive. So I'm
Okay.
actually next tour, which is 8 weeks tomorrow. That's when the group chat gets set up. So we've got all these 4 teams coming together. And typically the way that these guys are, and football guys, is, banter, all these, memes and stuff sent in, and a lot of chat, which is great. Feel like they know each other before they even land. And then a lot of few things going in. So we do like a player profile. So people sort of get to know the people that are coming before, if they're paying attention to the content. And then they get out there on the Wednesday, and all the teams obviously meeting each other and getting that icebreaker done sort of in that welcome drinks in the evening. But it's, from their point of view, it's, they turn up from the flight and they don't really need to worry about anything else, because we've got, a driver with their name on it at the airport, picking them up, taking them straight to the hotel. They get to the hotel, check in, and I'll sort of let them know where everything is, get their bearings a little bit. And we have hospitality partners, typically the venues that we go to on the welcome drinks and the awards night. They're part of our hospitality partners who have 8 venues in the area, and they give us 10 to 20% off for bringing, obviously a large group over. And it's a sports bar, so it's perfect. The most recent one, it was Champions League night on the Wednesday. So I think there were 3 or 4 different English teams playing, and every single one was on one of the TVs. We've got all the guys sort of getting to know each other there, and then it's right, get to the pitches for 11, and then you turn up, you're told how the tournament's going to work. It's a group stage. All before the tournament's even started, before the holidays started, they've got the match schedule. They know when they're playing, who they're playing on the first day, the finals day, once the first day goes. And then as the tour's running, we get content out on the Instagram. So, the best moment of the day, myself and the videographer would sort of think about which one it is. And typically those have got great organic views because it's as it happens. And we're sort of stories Also, people can live the experience themselves if they're either coming on one in the future. Maybe they want to experience one at some point. They can live it themselves while it's
Yeah.
happening.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What kind of people does this attract? Like, I know you've got the football lover, but beyond that, there must be like a kind of person.
I think it's primarily people who prioritize experience and doing stuff with their mates at the
Okay.
heart. One thing that's great is that on the first tour I had in October, which I say the first tour was the first one without my friend, the first proper one I had never met. One of the groups was uni lads. One of them were a group of investment bankers that were sort of 30 odd. And, that's just a different demographic there entirely. And then a few in between, sort of 20-year-old lads who just played, Saturday football. Some of them had never played as a team before. Some of them played regularly. So, but primarily it's just guys that they've been on holiday and maybe in smaller groups and stuff, but we're giving them that group experience, which I've always referred back to this graph, which when I saw it, it sort of really struck home with me, is that the time that you spend with your friends, it's obviously really high when you're younger, but it always goes down. So it's actually making sure that people are getting those experiences when life gets busier, you get more responsibilities and things like that, making the most of the time when you're able to move and play football, which is, unfortunately a finite period, and one that I'm hoping for me will last as long as possible anyway. But getting people to go and experience something a little bit different to a normal holiday, meet other like-minded people, and yeah, it's all just built around the experience and connection and willingness to connect with other people who have a shared interest and are obviously there for the same reason.
Yeah, got it. No, that makes complete sense. I remember my husband actually went on a football tournament with his old company. They went to Mallorca, I believe. I mean, and there was a strong take up. So I completely get the sentiment here.
Yeah.
It is a really great concept. And I guess one thing that I genuinely admire about what you're doing is that you are very much a one-man operations. What is it actually like running every part of the business yourself, from marketing to logistics to delivery?
A lot of it is, there's a lot of self-reflection with it because you're just learning different parts. Like you say, a marketer, a salesman. I've had to learn how to produce my own content and create videos and editing and all these sides. So you just have to put yourself in a position to be willing to learn every part of it. And I've invested in myself in terms of trying to improve that education on, okay, how do I best target people with my content? How do I create this best offer and market that to people and reach those people? It's obviously difficult at times, but you have to get started. I always think that imperfect action is better than perfect inaction. So just doing something on the topic and making sure that you're always, rather than having decision paralysis of how would I do that? What should I do? You just make the action, do it there and then at least you're making some sort of progress. So it's all a learning curve. I hope that it always will be, because part of entrepreneurship is the fact that it makes you more well-rounded as a person primarily. And whether it's, a business that reaches the heights that I believe it can do or not, either way, I'm better off because of it, because I've learned different aspects of life, of business, of things that I can take into anything else that I go into my life, whether it's another business in the future, whether it's relationships with people. So I've sort of relished that part of it. It's difficult at times, and I'd say the loneliness side of it is probably the hardest part. Just a lot of going into the office and having that, interpersonal connection.
And the camaraderie as well sometimes, but you get that on the tours, which is great.
Yeah, all worth it
Yeah,
when
no, I completely hear that. And obviously there is obviously the freedom versus the pressure. You're making those decisions, but and you're learning everything on the go. So I would so much
yeah.
rather be in those shoes. Tough beginnings, but I'm sure you're super proud of yourself at the end of every tournament. What a moment to
Yeah.
really enjoy. What surprised you most about running a business solo?
I would say it's probably that part I didn't really think about is, doing absolutely everything. And, I never really thought of myself as a salesman, but I think it's easier to sell something when you wholeheartedly believe in the product. And it's something that if I wasn't willing to go on myself and willing to invest my money into, then it would be way harder to sell it to someone else. But I think it's wearing all those different shoes, but also working out how to allocate your time efficiently, because as an entrepreneur, and I think one of the hardest things with relation to this is actually switching off and giving yourself the time to reset, refocus, and energize yourself, and then sort of come back to it. And sometimes you identify when that time is needed. But yeah, primarily it's, what do I need to do? Finding what is the most important thing, your bottleneck at that moment in time, because if that's not solved and there's one specific bottleneck that you're not solving, but you're focusing on other things, then it's completely pointless. So identifying what that bottleneck is at any one time, focusing on that, and then sort of once you've done all you can to address that, then putting on the other shoes that you need to, and going off and working on those things as well.
Yeah, great. So you also rely heavily on social media to grow your business. So how have platforms like Instagram and TikTok help you build interest, trust, and momentum around Tiki Taka Tours?
Yeah, massively so. I mean, I wouldn't be anywhere where I am right now without it. It's sort of my sole method of reaching people at the moment. And TikTok's been great for, when I get a video where the hook is just right and the information is coming across in the right way, and trying different formats, then it takes off really well. And I'm sort of engaging people with a call to action that makes them comment, and it keeps pushing the video out. So TikTok's algorithm is great for that. When you get a video that starts to gain momentum, and it's just pushing it out to the right audience. So that's been a really good way of getting it with, a few videos now sort of over 100,000 views, which have bought me a lot of my.
That's huge.
Yeah, and then Instagram, it's you less get those really high numbers, but you get more credibility on Instagram, and you can sort of, bring yourself across. And the stories are really important, because once you bring people into the ecosystem of viewing your content, and a lot of the time without having followed first, and then they'll drop you a follow, and then they're looking at your stories, and that's when you start to get them into the buying process, and offer them, make them aware that there's opportunities to buy. So yeah, it's learning each part of that process, and implementing it as part of the sales process, really. But it's the thing I've learned the most about in terms of posting content, and running an Instagram page and TikTok. And yeah, it's probably the part I enjoy the most, the content creation, really, which is I
You
think.
seem to be really, really switched on the ball with content. I'm loving hearing this. What would you say, what content seems to resonate most with people watching?
So what I've found more recently is definitely that people are most interested in seeing what a destination would look like before they could potentially go and play there themselves. I've been to a few places now, so Tenerife, Malta, Rhodes, and more recently in Southeast Asia, Koh Samui, Koh Tao, and Singapore. These are the short form videos that have got my most organic views, because people are immediately curious about what playing football in another destination might look like. And, in Tenerife, I went and played against some locals and put some of the footage of that up. But the backdrop is just this beautiful volcano. And it's, people are immediately curious as to, if I could play there, I would absolutely love that. And I'm sort of going to tap into that with going to new destinations, and not just showing the pictures, but showing, okay, this is where you could be staying. This is how easy it is. This is the nightlife here. This is what the bars and restaurants are like. So I think allowing people to really live that experience, so that when they turn up, it's almost like there's no surprises, and they know exactly what to expect, and they are getting exactly what they've put their money into, and
Yeah.
they're
Like,
fully.
almost like they can picture themselves there already. I
Yeah,
really like that idea. Yeah, that's a good, not marketing, but it's a good tool to entice people in, bringing them into the experience. You're like bringing it to them
yeah,
before they're there. That makes complete sense.
yeah,
What would you
exactly.
also say was the hardest part of growing Tiki Taka Tours so far?
I think learning the social media was going to be my main driver of the marketing. Sort of started off using a marketing company and trying to reach Sunday league teams. Then I started sort of a business coaching course, and sort of invested into myself in that front. And then I realized that there's a very specific target audience that I need to be reaching, but not just reaching, but talking to in my content. And sort of one of the hardest things was actually getting over the barrier of putting my face to the business and then starting posting, which is always a high anxiety thing for people to do. And I've sort of just become numb to it now, because I speak to a camera or, my phone every day, and just sort of push it out and feel like I'm speaking to someone, because the way that I speak to people on social media is the same way that I would speak to them in person if I was talking to them about, what my business is and why they should potentially, but not even selling it directly. I can just talk about it with passion, and a lot of
Yeah.
people.
No,
So
and it shows. No, I completely get that. When you look at how people want to travel now, because it's definitely changed, especially younger travelers, why do you think experiences like this are becoming more appealing than opposed to traditional trips?
I think it's just something a bit different, you know. People just crave that, and especially with, I keep banging on about content, but it's you know, it's a massive part of the business and obviously how I market it. But especially with something related to football, you're providing someone with that type of experience where they feel like they're living out the life of maybe that they dreamed of being that professional player and having all the games on film and playing tournament football. And a lot of the time you go, whether it's sort of a city break or a holiday, and the days can be very repetitive if it's, you know, you're not doing any touristy stuff, or you're going solely to a beach destination, sitting on the beach all day, or just, you know, sun lounging by the pool. And, you know, if that's what you need to sort of reset and refocus, then that's completely fair enough. But a lot of people, you know, by you get to maybe the third day, would be looking for some sort of activity to do. It's why all these hotels, you know, all inclusive hotels, have some sort of activity every day to keep people entertained. We're just building the holiday around that activity and making it the sort of the heart of the trip and what brings the people together. And then the other aspects of it, of chilling by the pool on the beach, you know, you've earned the ability to lie down because you've played 2 hours of football that day
I
and
love that.
feel a little.
There's a reward at the end. That is
Yeah.
brilliant. I love that. Yeah, that makes complete sense. So where would you say you see Tiki Taka Tours going next?
Well, it depends, you know, on a time frame. But my belief has always been that this is something that is transferable to anywhere in the world. My ultimate goal is for amateur footballers, especially, you know, ones growing up, to see this as an opportunity for when they get to 18 years old. You know, maybe we'll crack the youth market as well, but they get to the point where they believe and they see that they can play football anywhere in the world, whether they're, you know, obviously anywhere in Europe, and that's obviously where we're having to start. But, you know, I'm already having conversations with people in Rio, people in Koh Samui, and, you know, it doesn't need to be from the UK. It can be as simple as being regional. You know, there's so much opportunity here. It's scalable, and I've said to people the whole time, for as long as football and travel are interesting to people, and I think they're two of the most interesting things and the most loved things that probably exist in the world, that this concept, you know, will be one that will be successful, because people want different experiences. They want to travel, and as always, they want to play football, and that's ultimately what brings people together. And yeah, hopefully we can sort of take it worldwide. That's the plan.
See that come in. I think we'd like to see you grow your team so you're not pulling
Yeah,
from all different corners. But
yeah.
I mean, it sounds entirely achievable. And I really can't wait to see the growth. For someone who's listening, who maybe loves travel, but has an idea, but feels a bit nervous about doing something alone, what would you say to them? Like, could you give like a bit of advice to someone that is trying to figure something out in the travel space?
I think it's always just better to take the leap and work it as you go. There will always be people that you can find, and if you're good enough at the networking is really important. So trying to find people who have been in the space or just in business in itself, and get some advice from them, see how it's worked for them. But a lot of people who have been in business, you'll find that a lot of it is just about the mindset. It's about how you approach things. It's just about taking action. And, you know, by no means is this anywhere near the finished article, or am I the finished article yet? But I'm getting to the point now where I've got more people in my network because of just doing the thing and speaking about it and putting it out there on social media, putting it out there into the world, that more people who are interested in it, obviously coming, are reaching out, but also who have been and done, you know, travel before. They've been in the industry for 10 or so years. They've either got different destinations, they have their own companies. And I think a lot of the time, by just doing it and taking action, you'll just attract the right people into your environment, and you'll end up building a good network of people who understand a bit more than you, and just sort of treating every other person that you meet as if they know something that you don't, and then just trying to their brains on it. So yeah, I would always just say take the leap and work it out as you go.
I love that. I say as well, feel the fear and do it anyway. So
Yeah.
yeah, and Ben, this has been such a fun and honest conversation, especially from your early travels to building something completely on your own. Thanks again for sharing your story. And
Thank
where
you.
can people find Tiki Taka Tours and see your upcoming trips?
Yeah. So at Tiki Taka Tours on Instagram, and TikTok is at Tiki.taka, on YouTube as well. And that's at Tiki-Taka-Tours. So yeah, you'll find all the links on the link in the bio in the Instagram, but that's probably the place to head.
brilliant. I'm glad that I've actually managed to pronounce it the right
Yeah.
time a few times. I'm not going to forget Tiki Taka. Still going strong. Thanks everybody for listening. Thanks, Ben. And if you enjoyed
Thank you.
this episode, please be sure to subscribe and share it with someone who loves travel and football, because I've got plenty of people in mind, and I'll see everybody next time. Thanks again.